Welcome, everyone. It's nice to see familiar and new faces here. Welcome to our very first Just an Hour for this academic year. I'm Betty G. For those of you who may not know me, I'm a faculty member in the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College and also Associate Dean for something called Faculty Systems, which I'm kind of making up as I go each year. But I'm happy to be able to kick us off with our other associate deans, Punya Mishra, and our interim dean for global initiatives is Gustavo here. I don't have a big enough screen to see everyone. Gustavo Fishman. So
yeah, he's here.
Well, I'll jump in. We're really happy to be working so closely together on this and other initiatives, and we'll start with a few announcements about that before we get started. But just for those of you who are brand new, the Just an Hour series we started last year as an opportunity for faculty, doctoral students, both within and beyond Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College to get together to talk about ideas. The premise is that one of the reasons we're all in academics is we're interested and excited about ideas and their implications, in our case, for education and teaching and learning. And we don't always have opportunities for these kind of conversations in the course of our everyday lives as academics or as students. It is just an hour, so we try to keep our schedule pretty tight. And we alternate every week. We haven't announced the rest of the sessions for this semester, but we try to bring in faculty and students, other folks, to engage in conversations around a lot of different sorts of topics. The format is informal. As you'll see, we typically do not ask our discussion leaders to present or prepare presentations or anything like that, but we really encourage sort of an informal environment, and we encourage all of you to jump in and ask questions and post comments in the chat if you like. So sorry, and that makes me distracted because I'm looking at someone's Otter assistant and saying, okay, what the heck? But I'll try to move on. So usually we start with some announcements. Punya, do you want to jump in and do some announcements, I think, of past sessions that we've had or past events, as well as things coming?
Sure. Thank you, Betty. And thank you all for joining. We have 43 people on the Zoom call. I'm so happy to see that. An opportunity to welcome our new colleagues as well. So I won't take too long because, the main, part of the show, so to speak, is coming up. But a couple of quick announcements. One, we had our, new doc student orientation. I'm all, on the, which was great. 18 new students joining the PhD program. The LNI EDD has now, I think, 300 plus students with 3 new cohorts starting this summer. And I think some of our doc students have joined today's Just an Hour. So welcome to them as well. Many of you may or may not know about the Learning Futures Collaboratives, which are these groups of faculty and doctoral students who sort of work together around sort of significant challenges in education. I'll drop the link to the website in a second once I'm done speaking here. We had our year 2 kickoff. We support 6 of these groups. And those of you who are interested in participating, drop us a note and we will connect you with the right people. Or you can just connect with the people then by going to the website and seeing these different. So that was great. The other thing is, we are looking at how we can expand the impact of this work. So we have a partnership with Dublin City University around research around these topics. So more information about that coming soon, as well as looking at sort of research practice partnerships with a futures sort of thinking perspective, because these are building on the learning futures. There has been a soft launch of this thing called the My Education Hub. Derek Serber has been taking the lead on that. And that is sort of a one sort of web space where you can find a lot of information about teaching. For instance, the work that we've been doing around AI and teaching is all hosted there. The resources, the Just an Hour episodes, which we record, and then Jake Snyder, our video guy, sort of edits slightly, also end up archived over there. So that's going to be a great resource. Oh, Derek, thank you, Derek, for that link. So my.education.asu.edu should take you there, and you'll find, I think you'll find that a pretty useful resource going forward. Betty and Gustavo and I send these emails out on a pretty regular basis, once a week, sort of giving updates. So always looking forward to, hope we can get some feedback from you about that. And also there'll be lot of news items in that as well. Finally, I'm going to drop another link in a little bit, which is our scholarship roundup survey. Please take a minute to fill that up. We know you guys have been extremely active over the summer, publishing, presenting, doing exciting things in research and scholarship and teaching. And this is the only way we really have of finding out. As you know, we redesigned that form last year to make it a lot easier to use. And we hope you'll take a few minutes to fill that out. So Betty, I'm going to push it back to you while I take a moment to drop some links in the chat, and let's take it from here.
Thanks, Punya. Before we jump into our new faculty, Jill reminded me that we actually have two of our new postdocs who are here, and makes me think we're going to be reaching out to you for another Just an Hour. But Jill, would you mind just doing brief introductions so everyone knows who our new two postdocs are?
Sure, absolutely. We are really fortunate to have two presidential postdocs joining Ed Leadership this year. Raquel Armstrong, who among other things is an amazing scholar, school administrator, provocateur as an entertainer. I'll leave it at that. And then we have Ishmael Miller, also an incredible educator, administrator, activist. And so I want everyone please just to welcome them and see them for the really fierce scholars and practitioners that they are. So welcome, you two.
Thanks so much, Jill, and welcome to the college. So let's move into our conversation for today. I'm just so excited and happy to introduce you all, if you haven't already met them, to our three new tenure-track assistant professors in the college this year. There is Linsay DeMartino, who is an assistant professor in D2, joining us from Illinois, although she's returning to Arizona. And we won't mention that other university that she was affiliated with previously. So at least I don't feel badly that she didn't know what she was getting into when she returned here. I don't know if it was August or whatever. So welcome, Linsay. We also have Jesse Fleming, who is an assistant professor in D1. He is joining us from the University of Virginia. And Jesse, I don't know if you've lived in the Southwest before, but if you want to address that, you can. And then you may all know Lydia Ross. She's an new assistant professor, tenure-track professor in D2, although she has been with us before in a different position. So with Lydia, we didn't have to pretend when we interviewed her in February that the weather was like that throughout the year. She already knew what she was getting into. So for the format today, I'm going to ask each of you to just briefly give a little bit more of an introduction to yourself and your work. And then for the rest of the audience here, we've given them some prompts. I think we shared the prompts with you a couple days ahead of time. And so Punya and I, and maybe Gustavo, will just kind of alternate with the prompts. We'll go through a few and then we'll open the conversation up. If you have questions you'd like to pose or comments, please put them in the chat. So, Linsay, would you briefly introduce yourself?
Yes, I have to toggle through a couple screens. Still getting used to that. Linsay DeMartino, my pronouns are she, her. I am an assistant professor in, I believe, D2, which is the Division of Leadership and Innovation at Teachers College, and I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Linsay. Jesse Fleming, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Jesse Fleming, just moved here from Virginia. I did grow up in the Phoenix area, so I did know what I was getting into, but it's a lot hotter than I remember. So it's been a good transition. Just don't do it in July, I guess. But yeah, I'm special education researcher supporting students in inclusive settings. So really excited to be here.
Thanks, Jesse. And now I do remember that you were from Phoenix originally. So, and yes, it has changed quite a bit. Lydia, would you introduce yourself briefly?
Hi, everybody. I'm Lydia Ross. I'm a new assistant professor in Division II Leadership and Innovation. My pronouns are she, her. As Betty mentioned, I was formerly in a clinical faculty role working mostly with our EDD students, but excited for this new position.
Thanks so much, Lydia. So I'm just going to jump right into our first prompt. And this is a question I always love to ask because I love hearing about people's stories. So our first question for each of you is, what got you interested in the work that you currently do? And so this also gives you an opportunity to say a little bit more about the work you currently do. So I'm going to start in reverse and start with Lydia.
Sure. Yes, so my research focuses broadly on ways that we can expand access and equity and inclusion in education. I mostly focus on higher education, but as I'll talk about throughout this time, I also do some work with K-12. And what got me interested in that was actually during my undergrad. My undergrad is in history, and I needed to work during my undergrad. So I got a different job at a private university and was noticing while there that the student population was predominantly white, very affluent, and it just made me really think about how do different students access institutions. So at this private university, it was a lot different than the commuter school that I was getting my undergrad degree at. So that's what kind of prompted my questions and really made me realize that I wanted to switch to studying education and looking at how we can expand higher education access. I'll stop there.
Cool, thank you. I have lots of follow-up questions, but I think we'll go around first. So Jesse, so what is the work that you do and what got you interested in that area?
Yeah, so I'm interested in supporting students with disabilities in inclusive settings, really along the lines of behavior and social skills. I got into this, I became interested in this. I started out my educational career. I taught for about 7 years and then moved into an instructional coach role. And as a general education teacher, I did not feel prepared to support students with disabilities who were included in my classroom. Once I switched over to special ed, switched over to the dark side, I just was really frustrated that I had so many students who I thought were so academically capable to be successful in high school, yet really struggled because of social or communication or language challenges. And I just felt like these inclusive settings are not really set up for all students to succeed. So.
Interesting. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure we'll want to hear more about specifically what you're thinking along those lines. So Linsay, what kind of work do you do and how did you get interested in it?
Great. I'm going to flip that. I'm going to talk about the experiences that brought me to my research trajectory. So I consider myself a scholar practitioner, and the way I became a teacher, I never saw myself as a teacher. I don't have one of those wonderful stories like I always wanted to be a teacher. That wasn't me. So I found myself going into education reluctantly. However, as a pre-service teacher, by happenstance or whatever you want to say, I was placed in an ethnic studies, Mexican American studies, Raza studies class at Pueblo Magnet High School in Tucson, Arizona. It was a well-established program at that time. It was right on the cusp of HB 2281. My supervising teacher engaged me in difficult conversations when I entered this classroom around race, ethnicity, education, and opportunity. And at that time, I had no answers, right? Because I had walked into her classroom with zero critical consciousness. Long story short, my supervising teacher took a liking to me. She saw something in me that I didn't see in myself at that time. And she gave me a copy of an introduction to critical race theory and also Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And then we started having more in-depth conversations. At the same time, I was being invited to transformative educational conferences. And so as a pre-service teacher, I was listening to some really critical scholars, David Stovall, you know me, I'm a huge fan, David Stovall, you know, Angela Valenzuela, Wayne Au. And then I took a position at this high school. As a special education teacher, I was primarily a resource teacher, and then I made my way to inclusion specialist. Then I became the department chair. Then I exited to finish my dissertation research at a community-based charter school. And then because I wanted to become involved and get back into the schools in Tucson, I took an administrative coordinator position at Choya High School. So given all of these experiences, you know, I'm honored that the Mas Raza folks imparted this gift of knowledge, because it changed my life. And I continue to be an educator and a leader in racially segregated high schools, which really solidified my purpose as a scholar practitioner of transformative educational practices across educational spaces. And that's what I see myself doing right now.
Thank you. I think I'm going to ask the next question, and we'll mix it up. Jesse, I'll have you go first, followed by Linsay and then Lydia. So the question is, what are you most looking forward to in your work here at the Mary Fulton Teachers College? Jesse?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm really excited to be here. As you just heard, two really great scholars coming in with me, lucky to have interacted with them and learned from them already, and all of the wonderful folks that have introduced themselves and reached out. Obviously, there's a lot of really brilliant and kind people here. So excited to work with you all and collaborate. One thing that's really interesting to me about ASU is, you know, in some of the other colleges of ed that I've either experienced it or visited, you know, I think ASU just has a really strong vision for what they want to do for the future. And a lot of these different colleges kind of have their talking points, but I'm really excited about, you know, the vision of really addressing the needs of, you know, K-12 education here in Arizona and the country and, you know, the world. And so I think that's really, really exciting. I joined an LFC. I didn't even know what LFC stood for, but I joined it still. And Project Oasis, which, you know, just really excited about thinking about how we can improve special education for teachers and for students, and how that relates to, you know, the other LFCs and next education workforce. A lot of really exciting things that yeah, I'm really happy to be a part of.
Thank you.
Jesse, I am excited to come in and work with you and Lydia. You've both been just delightful, and I've enjoyed getting to know you both. And it's funny how we're all kind of connected, and counterparts. I like that. Good job, Teachers College. Okay, so so I am really happy to be back in the Arizona context. It's where my heart is. And so I'm looking forward to collaborating with the brilliant scholars across ASU and the practitioners in the surrounding communities. I look forward to contributing to an already well-established scholar practitioner program. Those EDD folks are rock stars. in the CPED space. So yeah, I'm looking, I'm really happy to be a part of that. And then, I think, I'm back to working with one of my favorite humans and my longtime mentor. So I'm really excited about that as well.
I'm also excited to enter this new phase with Jesse and Linsay. They've been great so far. I've been well established at ASU, so I feel like I know the culture pretty well, and I really appreciate how interdisciplinary ASU is. I do a lot of work with the College of Engineering or just different STEM programs, so I'm excited to continue with that. I also think ASU does have a clear vision around access. We all know the phrase that we measure our success not by whom we exclude, but whom we include. And I really am passionate about the admissions model that we have and just the way that we approach expanding access for a lot of students. So I think it's a great place to be at to study how we can bring more students into higher education. And I think transitioning from a clinical role to a research role is just also very exciting, where I was doing most of my research on the side before and fitting it in. I now have much more time to just dedicate to thinking and learning, a new area. So I'm really excited just to have a lot of time to dedicate to research.
Gustavo, do you want to?
Yeah. So thanks for sharing your ideas. This is great. Could you share with us what excites you the most about your research? What's a big idea? What's exciting? And do you need any help? You have lots of people here to ask for collaboration. So, Lydia.
Well, you threw in the second part of that question, so I hadn't thought about it. But let's see. I'm excited, kind of like I mentioned, continuing to focus on some of these interdisciplinary projects. I have a project I'm currently working on, working with high school counselors and expanding their understanding of engineering to help encourage more students into that discipline. So I'm looking forward to that project. And I have another pretty big project I've been a part of as the evaluation lead, which is creating virtual field trips for students to learn more about archaeology and like some other STEM related disciplines. So those are the two projects I'm most excited about right now. In terms of help, I always would appreciate connections if anybody has projects that they think it could be a good fit on, where I can help with methodology and evaluating things, especially as it relates to STEM access or just student access to education in general, or just any interesting things that you read about that I should also be reading. That's all I can think of for now, but I'm sure as I have more time in this role, I'll have lots of things that I could use help on.
Thank you. Jesse?
As I listen to other scholars talk about, diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, thinking more critically about education, I'm really excited about the possibility of, thinking more about disability and special education as a piece of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Sometimes when we look at, the traditional models of DEIJ, disability, neurodiversity, different ways of thinking, of being, of communicating. It's not always valued, and those folks don't always have a seat at the table. And so I'm excited to, see where we can, continue to support these individuals, continue to include them, and really, include them as valued members of our schools and our communities, and give them voice, and then take that a step further and help them become valued members of our society. So I'm really excited about the where the field is going in terms of these initiatives, and I know there's a lot of really great critical scholars engaged in DEIJ here at the university, at the college, and so would love to collaborate and think more about what that means for students with disabilities and neurodiverse individuals.
Okay. What excites me most about my research? So right now, I'm in this. in this point in time in my career, I'm really excited about the opportunity to co-construct transformative knowledge, primarily in the Arizona landscape. I'm committed to collaborative and innovative research designs like PAR, YPAR, our space research, and being a COVID academic, coming in as an assistant professor at the onset of COVID. My research trajectory really took a pause, and I had to do what I had to do in this field, which was publish or perish. So, just recently, I've been able to tap into my lineage, having a background serving as a GSA advisor in high school. So Gender and Sexuality Alliance, Gay Straight Alliance, depends on who you read. And that comes from Tucson, Arizona in my P12 context. So I'm really excited about having been able to start this work in Illinois, and extending it to the Phoenix area. I'm looking for partnerships to continue to work with educators and youth involved in GSAs, to continue to co-create a critically inclusive school environment. I'm really excited about it. I think in terms of ASU, I've taken on EPA 752, research design. I could see Margarita laughing. I am... Gustavo. I am looking for folks who might want to visit our class. It's on Mondays from 9 to 11:45 to talk about their research expertise, and how it relates to research design. So please email me. The students would love to have you, and so would I. Thank you.
Yes, very nice pitch. Thanks, Linsay. Gustavo, I'll just step in. We can alternate with questions, but yeah, I just wanted to put in a little plug. Everyone, as you're listening, even if you don't want to jump in now, send a note to folks. I'm seeing all these potential connections that we all can make with our new folks here. So please reach out. I think it makes a big difference. So next question. For the next question, we'd like each of you to articulate, what do you really want people to understand about your research? And, maybe to frame it in terms of, why is it important? What's the contribution it's making? And I'm going to modify this a bit to say, not only scholarly, but broadly, what's the impact that you really want to have? So, and just to mix it up, Jesse, I'll start with you. What's important about your research?
Well, I think it's very important, but oftentimes, and I'm going to hone in on special ed, so hopefully I don't hone in too far, but when we see social communication interventions, oftentimes the onus is completely on individuals with disabilities to change. And I think that's problematic for a few reasons, but when you look at these interventions, oftentimes the outcomes, they don't generalize very well. And so they might a student might learn to initiate with a peer a conversation with one peer in one setting, but then they go talk to another peer, or they're in a different setting, and they have a difficult time doing it, right? And so I think part of the reason for this is because social communication, interacting requires two people to want to do it, and so oftentimes we see peers, not willing to engage with our neurodiverse students. They don't value their friendship or those interactions. And so I'm really interested in developing interventions that target teachers and peers, so that peers are more willing to engage in conversations, and not just more willing, but really see the value in these individuals, what they bring to the classroom, help teachers see the value. So maybe focus more on, strengths versus deficits, and really help teachers, peers, and neurodiverse students to really see the value that they bring to the classroom, the value in their unique contributions. Because a kid shouldn't hate themselves because they have autism, because they experience the world differently. And so we really need to kind of change how we look at disability, at neurodiverse individuals. And so, yeah, I would hope that, these interventions would, benefit everyone involved, kind of change how we operate in schools. And then, like I said before, I think schools can definitely be an incubator for, maybe that's not the right word, but I think we can enact change within our schools that then can go on to benefit society. And we have this, a lot of this untapped potential from neurodiverse individuals, not just in our schools, but in our society as well. And I think we're missing out on the wonderful contributions that they have to offer.
Thanks, Jesse. And just a brief plug. It sounds to me like your work aligns so well with the LFC that you're a part of, Project Oasis, which that has the goal that I always interpret as, what if we create schools where special ed is needed, where everyone is included and we don't have to have different categories for people. So yeah, I'm really excited to hear more about that in your own work. Linsay, I'll call on you next. What's important about your work?
I think, well, I know, given our space, place, and time, right, and the continuing assault on equity and justice movements in education, the influx of anti-trans legislation, policies and practices in educational spaces, the censoring of justice-based curriculum, pedagogy, and scholarship, all situated really under this flatlining promise, right, and momentum for educational opportunity, which was caused by the COVID pandemic. I think that research into practice, collaborative research, participatory research, all of these are important to reach, achieve, and sustain transformative educational practices in our spaces. But I think it's of the utmost importance to adopt these practices to impact the betterment of our present and future society at large. As Michael Apple always says, I've been reading a lot of Michael Apple lately, education is not a neutral act. And we're all part of changing the system.
Thanks so much, Linsay. Yeah, what I love about all of you is you have very ambitious goals. And I think that's fabulous. It's just great to hear. So Lydia, what do you want people to know about your work and why it's important?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think all of us know the benefits of education, so I don't need to tout why we need to have, more students having access to education and opportunities. But I think within my work, it's also important for us to look at different programs or interventions or innovations that people use and to assess how they're working and what parts of it are working and what parts aren't. And that's really what I enjoy with my work, is looking at these different programs and figuring out, ways that it's working well, or what can we tweak to, improve it. A lot of my work is directly with practitioners. So I also think it's important that we're not just, publishing for the sake of scholarship, but also that we're directly connecting these ideas with practitioners or people who are in positions to make policy decisions and change. And so I think making, directly translating that information for them is also helpful. And I think that's where, research methods and research design is really important as a way to assess what we're doing, but then also communicate that effectively with other people. So we can, expand education access and make it a more inclusive and equitable place.
Thanks so much, Lydia. And I actually go back to your very first point and say, also consider that not everyone does think that education is important. it, at least in the same way probably those of us in the room do. So that makes the kind of work that you're doing even more important to translate to that audience, what the value of education is. So thanks so much. Punya, do you want to take over?
Yes, I just want to give a shout out to Jill for completing the roundup and also promising drinks to people who do. I mean, that was unexpected and greatly appreciated. But thank you. And seriously, folks, take a minute to do it. It is very helpful to us, allows us to both promote and get to know the work that you're doing. So that's wonderful. So one of the things, we have the Learning Futures collaboratives, and education fundamentally is always about the future. So the next question is about when you think about education 10 years from now or 20 years from now, what does your area of research look like? And I'm going to go in, because I don't know how to pick names, so I'm going to go in alphabetical order of last name. So it's going to be DeMartino, Fleming, and then Ross.
Okay, thank you. So this for me is I'm hopeful. I learned that from a colleague of mine, to really kind of embrace this critical hope. I'm hopeful that we'll see an influx of community-based educators sitting in local, state, and national educational governing bodies rather than lifetime politicians and other folks, other non-educator folks. I think given this promise of informed decision-making, the adoption of contextualized, asset-based theory into practice, transformative, innovative educational practices looks promising and can become, policy to lead us into the future. Again, a more promising future.
Thank you. Jesse?
It's hard to predict, especially considering, I've only been thinking about special ed research for just a few years now, but I definitely would say that inclusion, hopefully inclusion becomes more of a regular practice, and for those of you not in special ed or don't think about that, I don't think inclusion is necessarily only a physical space, but inclusion as communities within our schools where, whether that's extracurricular activities or clubs or sports, where all students can be a part of that and interact with each other and learn from each other. And so I would hope that research continues to highlight the importance of inclusion in special education. And then I also don't want to lose the individualization piece. I think that having an appropriate individualized education is important for everyone, particularly students, neurodiverse students with disabilities. And I'm excited to see where technology comes into play on that, and how we can continue to leverage advances in technology to support students with disabilities.
Thank you, Jesse. Lydia?
Yeah, I think to echo what Linsay and Jesse said, I'm also hopeful, and I also found this question a little bit difficult to think about. But I do hope that, as education research continues, we can find more ways to, expand access or establish programs or practices that can help make things more equitable, inclusive for students across, all levels of education. I think, especially with some of the, recent changes around, admissions or just policies that we have in general around how students access higher education, that will continue to be an important area to research and look at, both from policies and then practices in K-12 spaces to expand access in higher education. I think with, online technology and just the expansion of online programs, it brings up more questions that we need to think about with thinking, well, while it is expanding access, it also might not be as equitable in some ways. So looking at how we can make online programs equitable at the same time as we're expanding access.
Thank you. This issue of equitable access was something we were talking about this morning with respect to this Gen AI. it is mind-boggling how much it costs to run these things, which they're now giving for free so that we all get hooked on it. It is literally to the tune of millions of dollars that would cost ASU. And so when we think about equitable access, and Jesse, coming to your point about technology as being one avenue, possibly, I think the issue of costs and who has access to them is going to become really a very, very huge. It always has been, and I think it's going to just get worse in the future unless we take a stand and figure ways out through that. With that, Gustavo, on to you.
And this is the most serious questions of all the questions that have been asked so far. I'm going to say, let's start with Jesse, then we go to Linsay and Lydia. So please share with us, what do you do for fun that you can share?
I really like sports. I went to the football game last night and left in a dust storm, could barely see. It was great. But I really love attending college sports. I'm excited to become involved here at ASU. I like playing sports, though I'm very bad at it. And I like hanging out with my kids. This isn't very much fun, but every once in a while I'll coach one of their teams, and I do that. I spend my time that way. It's not always fun though. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
So a little bit about me. My partner and I are trying to get back into hiking. So that's happening. And there's a kayak on our on our wish list, since we're situated not too far away from Tonto. So we're looking forward to that. But other than that, I enjoy the art of a really good cocktail. I get really excited by salt on cocktails and things like that. I like the Christmas of a local microbrew, Arizona Wilderness. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have gave it. It's my favorite brewery. It's been my favorite brewery for a long time. So yay, 10-year anniversary this weekend. Something to do. And I really like, the experience and sounds of attending live music. It's something that was bred into me as a child. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay, a few things I like. I just love being outdoors and doing physical activities outdoors. So I really like running at a very slow pace right now because it's so hot this summer. But running, I like hiking. So I'm happy to go hiking with you, Linsay. Rock climbing is probably the thing I like to do the most outside. And Arizona is a great place for that because there's so many rocks here and just great places to climb. I also love live concerts. I grew up in Colorado. So if anybody's been to Red Rocks Amphitheater, it's the best concert venue. And just my favorite place to see concerts. So I still try to go there every summer too. But basically just anything I can do outside makes me happy.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I have a few minutes left. Anyone else want to jump in with a question or a comment, or our panelists, do you have questions for everybody here that you'd like to pose?
I'll just jump in to say, just to give a comment that we're all talking about research and research by faculty, and here at the Office of Data Strategy and Compliance, we have a big push this year to do more support, provide more support for faculty. So if you have an idea, we'd love to help you get your data. So you're basically working on thinking, and we'll get the data mark done for you. So just wanted to say hello, and we're here to support everyone.
Thanks so much, Mark. And if you don't know Mark, reach out. The work that he and his team at the Office of Data Strategy do is incredibly helpful for the college. And it's really exciting to hear more about the services they want to offer. So try to be first in line. I think there's going to be a lot of interest in that.
Just wanted to say that, we will have a link to a set of slides that Mark and his team have prepared in our next newsletter. It's going to be on the My Education Hub, but we'll give you a direct link to that. I'll give you a sense of all the different support that Mark and team can provide to research. And this is not just for our new colleagues. This is actually for all of our faculty and doctoral students. I think that's so. Thanks, Mark, for pulling that together.
So maybe any final words of advice for our new folks, work-related or otherwise, about surviving Arizona heat, or anything else you want to share, just to send them off well into the Labor Day weekend?
I think Jill had a really nice comment that she had posted, and I'm not sure if people got a chance to see it because it scrolls by so fast. Maybe Jill, you can speak a little bit to what you wrote. I thought that was very, very thoughtful.
About
advice.
Hey, first of all, I want to thank everyone for showing up, for our new faculty, our new colleagues, our new postdocs. I really warms my heart to see all of you here. I know Nicole feels the same way. I don't know where she is on my screen right now, but thank you for the warm welcome. What I think my general advice was just to be gentle with yourselves, be generous to yourselves. As you know, academic institutions can suck our souls. We don't want that to happen to you. They can also be super energizing and fun, but first year and transitions are really hard. Moving to new institutions, even figuring out email and all of our acronyms, it's really taxing, demanding physically and mentally. So just hope that you can be kind to yourselves.
Thanks, Jill. I just second what you said. And please reach out to Jill, to me, to colleagues. We're always happy to have conversation and help connect people and resources. And thank you for picking ASU.
Thanks so much. That's great. I think that advice is, in terms of being kind to yourself, is something we all should bear in mind in the hecticness of the semester starting up and the larger climate in which we're doing our work, meteorologically and otherwise. So yeah, Katie, just you want to say your comment out loud? I think that's super important.
Yeah, I mean, actually, this applies to every single person in this room, although some of you don't need any models. Some of you are the models. Was to ask for advice or models of anything like third year review or annual review or read on an article draft, or I don't know, everyone here wants you to succeed and stick around for as long as you'll have us. And so everyone will help. Like, don't be shy.
But that's wonderful advice. Thanks.
So Betty, I want to take a moment to give a quick shout out to our doctoral students who have joined us. I hope you found, that I think part of the reason for asking you to join is because a lot in graduate programs and in doctoral programs is learned by osmosis, by hanging out with people and being part of these, these genuine conversations that are going on. It, I think, demystifies some of the things which look sort of strange, but also gets you to understand how these things function, how organizations function, how higher ed functions. So I would really recommend that you reach out to your friends and colleagues in the doctoral program, in the EDD program, and ask them to drop in. As Betty and I will repeatedly say, it is just an hour, but I think that's something that is valuable as a way of enculturating yourself into academia. And I don't think we have enough opportunities to do that. So I would really recommend. So first of all, those who showed up, thank you. And please talk to your friends. We will, of course, send the message out, but I think it's more meaningful when it comes from you. So please take a moment to do that. And I think it just adds to the value of, we had 51 people at one point on this conversation. That is awesome. And we'd love to have that level of participation. Post-pandemic, it has been hard for us to find a sense of community and to have these many people join in this introduction. So firstly, awesome for, that Lydia, Jesse, maybe we just need to have the three of you every time, then we get the same crowd. That's the crowd puller. But we'll have a variety of different things coming up. Betty, maybe give a little bit of a foreshadowing. Next time, I think we're going to be speaking with the college award winners. We'll have multiple sessions around our Learning Futures Collaborative. So that's going to be an opportunity to learn about. I mean, we were just blown away by the work that's been done by the collaboratives over the past year. And so this is a chance to get to know more about them and a variety of topics through the semester. So we're looking forward to that. I don't know, Betty, Gustavo, if you wanted to add anything.
One thing I will just plug at Carla's urging, and Carla's on our governance committee, is you should have received a ballot for the standing committee elections. We have a number of openings, so please take a couple minutes to vote. The deadline is the middle of next week. So thanks, Carla, for that reminder. Gustavo, you have anything to add?
And in a couple of days, I think you are going to get information about the lectures that will be offered by the candidates for the Presidential Professor of Practice for our new global future educational lab. Please show up for those. It's very important. This is going to be a very interesting development for the college, and the more of you that will give us input will help us to make the right decision. So please show up there.
So we don't have a meeting next week because that's an all college meeting. So that'll be awesome to see all of you in person. So excited about that. Lauren asked, can someone please resend the info on committees? Okay. That email just went out today, right? Did it? Or am I missing something?
The ballot, yeah. I don't know, Lauren, if you were asking for more information about the committees themselves, or
No,
just...
I was asking for that email.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can forward it to you.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah.
And then we will meet next for just an hour on the 15th. And, you know, yeah, looking forward to that, but looking forward to actually seeing all of you in person next week.
Okay, well, we may be able to give you back a few minutes, unless, yeah, anything else. So thanks again for joining. I feel like sort of a talk show host after this one. I don't know. Thanks for joining us today for just an hour.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.